Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is DeathGod, and I will be presenting my melee build. Alright, first and foremost, we've got strength. And in strength, we're going to have martial artists. That's vital if you're doing a melee build, just because you want to swing that weapon as quickly as possible. Especially nowadays, where everything is a damage per second battle, and you're already in an uphill fight with melee anyway. If you're trying to melee effectively and you're not using martial artists, you're doing something very wrong. Put that on. Barbarian is very good for a high strength character, not just melee, because every bit of strength is going to add 4 more damage resist, and that can add up to 80. So if you have a high strength character, look into putting Barbarian on there for a little bit of extra damage resistance. Blocker. If you know you're going up against other melee dudes, you're going to want to have Blocker on there, because you're going to take a lot less damage from their melee attacks. Incisor. If you have Incisor on, it's going to make your attacks do a lot more damage, because you're negating so much of their armor with this perk card. Iron Fist. Currently I'm running primarily a Deathclaw Gauntlet for this build. However, you would want to switch this off with, Gladiator, as we can see down here, maybe, the Slugger series. Just all depends on what you are wanting to accomplish with your melee. Which type, one-handed, unarmed, or two-handed melee attacks. This build is also versatile in that strength could also use shotguns and heavy guns. So if you're kind of getting tired of the melee thing, hey, try to switch over and use some heavy guns and shotguns. You won't be disappointed. They're a good time. I take that back. You're going to be disappointed with shotguns right now, but they used to be awesome. And maybe one day they'll be awesome again. Perception was one of the dump stats for this build, not a priority at all. I do have Grenadier and Fire in the Hole to give you more versatility, especially when you're running melee prime, to give you a little bit more of an ability to hit hard to reach targets with those plasma grenades or those nuker grenades. Conversely, you could also switch off to a concentrated fire if you are for some reason using a weapon that you can VATS with at distance. You could switch off with some basic, maybe commando, if you're using, a Tesla for whatever reason on this character. And also just for the PvE stuff, you can have a full lockpick set if you are still doing PvE stuff in this game. For endurance, I've got Adamantium Skeleton at 3. That is necessary to keep you from getting your limbs crippled by the many limb crippling abilities that are out there. Radical, it's good synergy with Barbarian, good synergy if you're running Bloodied like I primarily do on this character. You're not going to need as much damage as you get with all the strength that you have and running a Deathclaw Gauntlet or a Power Fist, at least not for PvP because of the 110 damage cap. But I feel like it's good to have. Conversely, you could switch that off for something else, maybe Rejuvenated or Ironclad, for example. Fireproof is at 3. I combine that with a Dense Torso mod, and that's going to negate a huge amount of that explosive damage that you're going to be receiving. For Charisma, I'm primarily in a team, so I'm going to run Strange in Numbers almost all the time. If I'm not in a team, I'm going to run max level Lone Wanderer. Overly Generous is hilarious to use with a Buzzblade. If you're ratted out and you're using a Buzzblade and you have Overly Generous on, you are going to stack up the rads on the opponent unless they're using Rad Shield or something. You need to try it out sometime. It's really funny. I've got Suppressor on here as well. You could switch that off with Tenderizer if you want some more damage, but mostly it's here as a placeholder to be able to run Lone Wanderer for, at the max rank. Conversely, you could take off Overly Generous, maybe add Field Surgeon, mess with some things over here in Intelligence, put on First Aid if you are going to run a higher health. Right now, I am not doing that. Right now, I'm still running the Bloodied Melee. For Intelligence, another dump stat for this build, I've got Nerd Rage rolling at max level. It's going to give you a ridiculous amount of damage once everything's all set up with that DeathGod Gauntlet or the Bloodied Power Fist. Conversely, as I just said with the Charisma, you could switch it out, use some First Aid, but primarily I'm going to be running Nerd Rage with this Bloodied Melee that I run it primarily on. However, it is good to have options. It's good to have different perk cards set up for stuff that you might want to try. In the Agility column, I've got that maxed out. You're going to want to have a lot of AP because as a melee character, you are going to be sprinting all the time using that AP. So Action Boy, I've got that rolling at max level. Marathoner, max level. Got Evasive. Hey, why not add on some Damage Resist, Energy Resist? Secret Agent. A lot of the time, as a melee character, you're going to need to be in a Stealth Boy if you're running primarily melee. If you're not in a Stealth Boy, you're just going to get vatsed to death, unless you can maybe come up from behind somebody and they just don't see you. But then again, you don't really need a build for that. You're going to want to have Secret Agent at 3. Conversely, maybe run some Sneak. But by and large, if you are trying to run a melee character without being in a Stealth Boy, you will get vatsed to death quickly. And Dodgy, I have it on almost every character that I run. It's just great for negating a large portion of that damage that is coming in. Another option could possibly be Moving Target. That's what I used to run before figuring out how to use the Stealth Boys. It just gives you a little bit more DR and ER. However, as I said before, if you're not running the Stealth Boy and you're trying to just run straight at somebody, you are going to get VATS critted to death pretty quickly most of the time by anybody that really knows what they're doing at least halfway. For luck, I've got Bloody Mess 3 for that extra damage, Serendipity 3 to give you that survivability as a bloody build, and Class Freak 3 because I run all the mutations and I don't run Starch Genes because I feel that those 2 points can be allocated elsewhere. And I feel that Class Freak gives you enough of the negative effect negation that you don't really have to worry about it that much. And if you're getting into a big PvP fight anyway, you're probably going to be popping serums to completely negate all of the effects. But instead of doing that all the time and being dependent on it, I like to have Class Freak 3 on. Alright, that's going to conclude the build portion of this video. Alright, we're going to go into some of the gear that I run on my melee character. My primary melee weapon as of now. I've got Gore Pig, that's a bloody faster swing speed Deathclaw Gauntlet. Killed very, very many people with this particular Deathclaw Gauntlet. It served me well for many, many months when I was a melee prime from the beginning of the game up until maybe the beginning of survivals when I started moving more towards the rifles. However, this is the character that ran it, and it'll still destroy nowadays if you can get close enough. Another really fun weapon, Eviscerated Goat Fetus. That's what I named this bloody faster swing speed Mr. Handy Buzzblade, which, as I showed in the build portion, you combine that with Being Bloodied and with Overly Generous, it rips through people, and it's hilarious. The rads just stack up until they're dead. I've also got this nice bloody faster swing speed combat knife that my wife gave to me once she stopped running a bloodied melee build. If you're going to be running melee with the damage cap, or at least bloodied melee, you end up doing so much damage with weapons like the Deathclaw Gauntlet that it's kind of overkill at a medium swing speed. This, at a fast speed, you're generally going to be hitting the 110s anyway, but at a much, much faster pace. So we'll do a quick comparison. So here's the Deathclaw Gauntlet. I'm sitting here, I'm swinging, it's a faster swing, and I got martial artist on, so it's pretty quick. But then you come up with the combat knife, and you're just stabbing away. You're like that robot on Futurama, so, gotta practice my stabbing, doing that type of shit. And it's awesome. And obviously much faster than any of that stuff. You're going to have your Buzzblade and just destroying. It's all a great time. Those are my three primary melee weapons for this character as of now. For the armor, you're generally going to run a mix of Cavaliers and unyielding gear. I've got a large amount of that type of stuff, and for this build I want to have at least a few unyielding pieces to take advantage of being bloodied, give you that extra agility, strength, what have you. But I also like to mix it up with having the damage negation of the Cavalier, the Assassin, especially as you're running. Maybe mix in a Sentinel's piece as well if you're just sitting there trying to stab as well. So I like to run a lot of different things for this character, but you're primarily going to see me with Cavaliers, preferably Cavaliers powered stuff. I don't have a full set of Cavaliers powered. I don't have, complete sets of God armor, but I've got enough good stuff to get by, especially because my primary character is not this character any longer. It was in the beginning, and it's always been really fun. For your chems, you're going to want to run, some kind of Psycho probably. Psycho buff is really popular now. Wouldn't really want to run Psycho Tats for this one because you're not going to be worried about perception. But really, anything that's going to be giving you more survivability and damage is a winner. You don't have to worry about damage as much with the type of weapons that I'm using as a bloodied melee, but maybe going forward, if I choose to transition to a Junkies melee build or any other high health, maybe the damage would be more important. Maybe try to stack up the Overdrive and Psychos and all that type of stuff. Alright, y'all, I'm going to give y'all a walkthrough of my camp. Probably the only camp I've ever really built to any degree. So walking through here, we've got it set up like a squad bay. Reminding the recruits that they're killers here. Some propaganda posters here, fuck communism. Places for all the boots to sleep. Repair their armor and weapons. Here's your drill instructor hooch. Alright, don't fuck around, you're gonna get destroyed by a flamethrower or some kind of mine. Here's where old boys sleeping. Depicting an epic battle with a Deathclaw. We've got the perimeter pretty well barricaded, defended by some machine guns. Pretty awesome if you want to go take a piss. We've got some classic porta-shitter artwork here. Wagner loves the cock. Everybody knows that. Here's where I go and sell shit. We'll go up some stairs. Here's where all the crafting shit is. You want to get ready for your fight by playing a guitar. repair your stuff, make some fucking ballistic Bach or whatever. You can do all that shit here. Mostly chose this area because of this flag. Had this camp here long before you could actually have your own little flag. So I saw this, you know, thought America, and went ahead and built a little boot camp. That's about it. Kill.